And just a very brief history. Our current Lincoln County Animal Shelter was built around 1967. County operated it until 1977. That time they contracted with the Central Coast Humane Society to manage it. And the Humane Society had a good run of about 10 years operating the shelter, but they ran into some challenges, and in 1987 decided to turn it back to the county. The sheriff's office assumed management of the shelter at that time. That's where it's been ever since. Now, just 2 years ago, the county faced an absolute unprecedented situation. I've been around here about 25 years, seen the county go through a couple of budget crises, but never anything like what we faced 2 years ago, when in 1 year our general fund revenue dropped by 18%. That forced cuts in every department of the county. One of the proposals the sheriff brought forward was closing the shelter to the public, dramatically scaling back its operations. So why was the shelter on the chopping block? You know, again, I'm going back to the county mission statement where we commit to providing locally desired and legally required services. Although the shelter is locally desired, it is not legally required. If you check the ORS I've cited here, it only requires a county to provide what they call an adequate and sanitary facility for impounded dogs. And that statute even specifies that the county does have the option of operating the facility itself or contracting for that service. So, as many of you remember, there was quite a public outcry at that time. Every meeting room at our budget hearings was packed. I say it's conservative to say that 90% of that testimony related to the future of the shelter. Well, other significant cuts, like a 20% reduction in mental health, brought little or even no public comment. So that was the time when Focus was formed. And they worked with the commissioners and the sheriff, all of us at the table together, crafted a one-year plan using one-time money to keep the shelter operating in the 2009-10 budget year. And Focus certainly took an active role in passing the 5-year animal services levy in November of 2009. Now, Focus did express interest to the board during the 2009 budget process in potentially assuming management of the shelter at some point in the future. And we were public about saying that we would be receptive to considering that idea. So, discussions began with the Focus board in November of 2010 on crafting this agreement, and incidentally, we did issue a news release at that time. So, some key features of the agreement. It establishes what we're thinking of as a public-private partnership for animal services. Animal control remains with the sheriff. I think that's important to emphasize because I've received several emails, people under the impression that animal control would go to Focus as well. The shelter remains under county ownership. Essentially, Focus becomes responsible for overseeing the operation and the budgeting. All existing shelter employees would transfer to the Focus payroll with a guarantee of continued full salaries for 1 year. That is a requirement in state law when a public entity contracts with a private entity for a function that was formerly done by the public entity. Here's how some of the money is to be divided. Focus would receive quarterly operational payments. 65% of the levy dollars would be earmarked for the shelter, 35% for animal control, 85% of the dog license fund for the shelter, 15% of the dog license fund for animal control. We believe the agreement as drafted would provide for transparency and accountability, including a yearly audit of Focus. And the county would have an ongoing voice in the agency's policy and operations through seats on both their advisory and shelter management committees. So, why are we looking at this? It is certainly not because of any dissatisfaction with the current shelter operation. I think we share the opinion that we keep hearing from the public that the quality of the shelter operation has improved in recent years. So it comes down to the reason we're considering this is our concern in finding a sustainable operating model. We feel that we have to ask, what is the best service that we can provide at a price our customers, the public, are willing and able to pay? As stewards of the county finances, we need to maximize service delivery, minimize service costs to the greatest degree that we can, and I will emphasize what Commissioner Thompson said. No decision has been made. Options are being explored. We're going to gather in public testimony tonight, next week in Lincoln City, a third meeting on the 28th at the courthouse in Newport. After that, we'll probably do some additional research, schedule time for deliberation and a possible decision, and we will publicize that as well. Thank you.